Good. All right, call board the first planning commission meeting of this year. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the new members. Let everyone know ahead of time. I'm gonna get the meeting going. We'll probably need to do the old minutes, those that were there. And then the voting for the new officers of this board. I do personally, I do not want to have any leadership position this coming year. I don't have time this coming year to give it what I've been given it. So that being said, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Any proposed changes? All right, a motion to approve them. All right.
Yeah.
Jake moved.
I'll sit here.
Jim seconds. All in favor that were there, approving the minutes? Yes.
Aye. Wait.
Oh, Mark, you weren't there, but I wasn't there, sorry. Okay. Okay. We have a quorum. So, item of business is election of the board. We have a chair, vice chair, and secretary. I honestly don't quite remember how this went down a year ago. So I think we need to have motions for positions, etc.
I'll make a motion for John, the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
I'll move for Mark to be vice chair.
So will I.
Are you seconding?
Can I second myself?
Okay. Yeah, actually, I think you can.
I was gonna say, I'll second if
All right,
you can't, I don't,
second. All in
to
favor?
make things cleaner.
You want opposed? Who wants to be secretary?
Make a motion for Amber to be secretary.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Right.
I will cede the chairmanship to John. You can have the big chair. Let's call it places.
Let's do that. We'll do the next
Yeah,
one.
your big chair is important.
Oh, the big chair is important.
Big chair is important.
Oh, okay. That warmed up for you. Report each member's term and position. Is that from the commissioners? I believe the commissioners, put time on each one. We have a record of that.
Well, there's an issue. If you look in that red folder. The one with the meeting dates, there's also a table of the members. And I just want to clear up, there's 2 seats. One's got a 2-year term, that's the one that John took, Sue Ann's seat, and then Campbell, you're sitting in the seat that has a 3-year term. According to our ordinance on page,
I've got 2 left, I think,
well,
so.
you took Campbell's seat.
Yeah.
I have to go back from 17. The problem is when they first elected and set terms, it was done so it was staggered, so that not all 5 members were going out at the same time. The problem is on the ordinance, if you look at the ordinance, it says that all citizen members are supposed to have 4-year terms. So I had to recreate from 17 forward because I couldn't get an answer on whether it was 4-year terms, 2-year terms, or anything from
It's
the
all in statute. It's all in statute. I was going off of the minutes from
Yeah.
last.
And they're incorrect. I'll tell you that. I'm the one that did the table based
So
on,
you prepared them, right?
yeah. That's based on Tim Shoemaker telling me that everybody had 4-year terms, which was in accordance with what our ordinance says. But nowhere in any commissioners meeting, nowhere in any area planning commission meeting was those terms changed. They're 2 years, 3 years, they should have been 4. So I had to reconstruct Kyle's seat, who was originally the seat that you had, from 2017 forward in 3-year intervals to figure out where the term started and ended. You can look through this.
I'm not gonna disagree with what you did, but. Statute sets it all out, I know.
What's the statute say?
They're supposed to get started out with separate, well, I'm gonna wait for Ethan on this one because he's the attorney. I'm not gonna do that.
The ordinance says all citizen members have 4-year terms. It says in our ordinance page.
I don't think the ordinance controls that, Amber. I'm
I
sorry,
think our ordinance is copied from the state statute.
probably, yeah.
Yes, we'll get Ethan that question when he gets here, on that, so we'll pause this.
Okay, I do have a question. So on what was in the red folder, Glenn is still on there, but he's not listed on Glenn. Yeah.
I believe the commissioners told me that they voted against the designee seat
Correct.
and they.
That's correct, because
Okay, okay,
that's correct, it's Glenn. Yeah.
okay.
Jamie, that's extension council, extension board. On your decision, then you're that.
We haven't had a meeting in a
I
while.
talked to Adam. He said
Okay.
that they would reappoint you every year.
Okay, they changed the requirements on how often, extension, actually, they removed, requirements, so we haven't had a meeting. We only meet if it's necessary, and we haven't needed to for a while, so.
I think we should move to whatever the lawyer suggests to do as far as setting those terms and fixing it.
We'll have a discussion with him, potentially tonight on that, so we'll be able to, pause on that.
And then I also have a question on the BZA terms for the ones that the commissioners, it says 2, 3, or 4-year terms. And it doesn't specify what year, and the commissioner can never set how many years that person's gonna,
So I want to point out, this is not a BZA meeting.
I
And,
understand.
At the commissioners meeting, I told them we had a BZA meeting this past Tuesday, 2 days ago, and I asked them all what their terms are. And they all knew, everyone there knew who they took over from. So
Are they a
so I
2-year
get that.
term, a 3-year term, or 4?
I don't know. I mean, that's gonna have to go back to whatever records.
In the ordinance, it says it can be 2, 3, or 4, the commissioners have to set that, and they have it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell when
I
their
know
term's
the
over.
council member, yes, council member 1 was a 4-year term.
Yes.
Amber, we did set terms for the
Did you?
BTA, yes,
Okay.
we did.
What was that in the record?
It's such minutes from the last one,
Okay.
so you'd like me to go through these?
Sure,
Again, this is not a BZA meeting.
we do have
Sorry.
to appoint one person to BZA.
Under what authority?
So
Under our
in-
ordinance.
In the ordinance of the county, the APC has a member from the APC from our body that we appoint to that. Commissioners have one. That's not an APC member, I believe it's 2 or 3, I can't remember, and then the council gets one as well. On that, we select our.
Well, I'll point out, these are all set by statute, so. Don't think whatever the ordinance says,
So
so
our county ordinance, it says the
I don't.
organization of the
Right,
BZA.
this is not a BZA, this is not a BZA meeting.
Is supposed to elect somebody from this board to sit on the BZA.
What are the terms, so I can write it down?
For,
Dave Filippo was a 4-year term.
4-year,
Okay.
correct. Jessica was also a 4-year.
Okay.
John Allen was a 3,
Okay.
Jake was 2, Campbell was 1. Because we set that. With what we were told to set, and then,
That term out.
He should, because
Yeah, because we have the new year,
They
every
elected-
new year.
Just that,
they
correct,
elected
yes,
Campbell to be on the BZA commission.
yes.
Commissioners, yes.
Yeah.
And
Campbell's
they have,
on the BZA by the commissioners.
they have to assign, the commissioners have to assign somebody from the APC, then the APC has to assign from our body, someone to the, BZA. So, taking a motion for someone to be on the, from our body to be on the BZA.
I'll make the motion for Jake.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Nobody asked you. Already there.
Should we ask you before we do? All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed?
Year slotman on that,
1 year slot.
1 year slot.
Yes. Next item up for business is a report from Robert Azar.
I will.
We've been working on, a bunch of ordinances. Revisions. The latest 6 that we, focused on were subdivision ordinances, driveways, roads and streets. Flood hazard areas, drainage, and then the solar revisions under the, moratorium that we have in place. All these ordinances, the drafts have been submitted to you guys to take a look at. I hope, hopefully that everybody had a copy of that.
So that's it, isn't it?
That's, which one is that?
This dated November.
The subdivision.
Yes.
Do the new members have copies of those?
I anticipated that question, so I brought copies electronically with me because I emailed it to everybody else and I did not know we did not have them. So you don't have a copy of it. So that's one for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You don't have copies of them?
And I've got the subdivision.
Okay, so all these, the things that I mentioned are on that flash drive. Cause I went back through my emails, everybody that was on the commission had them, but I figured somebody. So, those, 6 ordinances have been drafted, they're submitted to you guys, we had around 1 or 2 rounds of comments internally that we incorporated. And I think it's time that we start going through them one by one. Really deep diving into them and making changes that you guys see fit. And then once everybody's happy with them on this body, you can send them to the commissioners for consideration. I honestly don't care which way we go. I thought we were doing subdivisions today, so I brought subdivision ordinance with me today. But I think you guys have to decide at some point which ones take precedence over others. Subdivision one is a big one, drainage is a big one, and obviously solar, because we are still under the moratorium. And if we can knock that out before the moratorium ends and we have a new ordinance, that'd be great. If not, then there'll probably be an extension to the moratorium or whatever process goes after that. Okay, so I'm available to do a deep dive review with you on the subdivision ordinance tonight. Or if you think differently, you wanna review on more, get any comments by email, electronic comments, whatever process you guys want to follow, I'm good with that.
Can you give me the 6? I got roads and streets, solar revisions, the subdivisions, drainage. What were the other 2?
Driveway and flood hazard areas. And, they all kind of speak to each other. Once you start digging in one, you'll find out that they correlate to each other, because if you're looking at subdivisions and whether you're looking at commercial or residential subdivisions, they're tied to the streets and the driveways, they're tied to the drainage, they're kind of, it's a body of work that we need to just keep going with and just knock them out one at a time and go going.
Any questions for Mr. Azar?
Roger, would you send fresh copies of all those, because and I may be wrong on this, I don't remember getting the final copy. of the driveway and the flood, but that may have been in that last email you sent, but that was pre-holidays. Would you
Yeah,
mind?
that's fine. I can send it to everybody here if I can get, Amber, if you don't mind, just give me a list of everybody's emails and
Yeah.
I'll make sure tomorrow morning I just sent everything new that I have. So whatever copies you have, if you worked on them, that's fine. If you haven't worked on them, just set them aside and take what I send you by email tomorrow as being like.
Any other questions? Next item of business, a report from committees. Hearing any? Old business, I believe we have a couple of things. I don't know if it's under old business or new business. Watching some of the past APC meetings, some of the things I wrote down on mine under new, but some of the things that we were discussing, fee structure, subdivision ordinance, and on that, so are we prepared to deep dive into the subdivision ordinance tonight, or do we want to look into that for what we get tomorrow and then update?
Special is our, you guys.
I say if there's 3 new members that haven't looked at it, makes no sense to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd like to take time to
Take the time to look at it.
review it first.
And honestly, I need to review it after the last rain. I didn't have time.
So we will do a session next month, which will be February 27th.
You want to do a working session on February 27th?
Yes,
For which ordinance specifically?
let's do subdivision.
Roger, with the length of the subdivision ordinance, do you think it's feasible and reasonable to add in maybe drainage or drainage or road or?
We can double up on the ones after this one.
Uh-huh.
This one is, we're gonna have to go in detail on
Okay.
this one.
Okay.
And I don't mind sitting and going through every section of it. And since you guys have already would have read it and know what you have,
Mhm.
I can explain, the intent of the subdivision. And then you can poke at me and say, hey, I have a question here, I have a comment here.
Okay.
And address it that way.
I was gonna say, to me, it makes sense to do really deep dives on subdivision, solar, and maybe drainage, depending on what you think, and then the other ones we can maybe fit in with some of these others.
That should not be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one, the subdivision ordinance deserves a meeting by itself. 'Cause
Okay.
We'll be tired when we leave.
So we'll schedule a work session on that. On the 27th. So let's be prepared for subdivision ordinance on that. Any other pieces of old business that we need to cover?
Is there a reason you're not prioritizing the solar? Since moratorium is going to be coming up this summer.
Is there a reason we're not probably can big dive into that? We're prepared to do that tonight?
No, I'm just saying in general, again. I don't like to force anybody to try to make decisions on stuff they haven't had a chance to read, but if. I mean, this entire past year, everything has been taken up with solar. And if we need to remain cognizant of the notice requirements between this board and then the commissioners and all that. Otherwise, those timelines will come up fast. And all of a sudden, there'll be a free for all.
So should we schedule
I'm just-
should we schedule a work session on the solar revisions for March the 27th?
I'm kind of on the side of, well, go ahead, Roger.
I'm sorry, I said yes and I checked my schedule, so make sure I'm yes, I'm out of state on the 27th. The next meeting we'll have.
February?
Of February or March,
Yeah, February.
okay,
So if you want, we can at least. It's up to you guys, you can start on this today, because that's what I'm planning to do. And I can go in detail through it, and we can just hammer through it, and then the new members can take the time to review what they have and send additional information. Or we can start in March, if that's okay.
I'd rather start later on the subdivision personally, because in the past when we've done this and we had members missing, they haven't had a chance, then we just spent 2 months doing the same thing.
I apologize about that.
So you can't go to 27, you can't look at subdivisions, or you would not be present on that. For the. So 327, are you around 327?
Yeah. Sorry.
So I would say, I was thinking that we could do the subdivisions on 227 and 327, we could do solar, but you know. Your comment Campbell on that. Maybe we need to bump solar to 327 and look at the solar ordinance.
I think you mean 220.
Because he's not gonna be here to discuss, you won't be attending the meeting at all.
No, I won't be
Exactly.
physically here, but if you want, I mean, we can have a little bit longer meeting on 327, hit the solar and the subdivisions. I think with the solar, you know, you're gonna have it, you're gonna read it, you're gonna know whether it meets the intent or not. And then we can, it's not very big, the subdivision ordinance is 40-some pages, the
Yeah.
solar ordinance is a lot smaller, it's about 12 pages. So we beefed it up with what we know, you know, people wanted to see, what you guys wanted to see. If you want, you guys can do internal review electronically with what I send you tomorrow morning. And then on March 27, we can start with it and switch to subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, I won't speak for, I'm okay with that. Though I will second Campbell's point, we have a ticking clock. It's the only ordinance we have a ticking clock on is solar, so I want to make sure we have.
But
But I
I
would
was
say
thinking that
we-
we could go to subdivisions, because that's an important one there, and then we do have time. And we can gain more. Because solar's gonna have to look at.
I mean,
So if we stack them all, if we stack both of those into one evening. We might want to order food, because we're gonna be, it's gonna be a long evening. I don't mind.
I think we have to, right? Well, what? So on February, on 227 meeting. I guess it's a question of what are we comfortable discussing if Roger's not going to be here, kind of bounce things off of. Are we more comfortable discussing, maybe could we potentially bang out some of the. I dare to call them less significant, but maybe less impactful ordinances there. That could be something we could talk through on the 27th, and then and come the March meeting. We could dive deep on.
We could look into the subdivision on February 27th in order to be able to be correct, you know. Maybe we've hashed it out amongst ourselves, and we rely upon him as, you know, the expert in the field that he is.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we all commit to getting thoughts around the subdivision ordinance? And then on 227, we can come together as a group, but despite Roger being out. Circle the wagons on the key points that we want to hit, and those are the first things that we address come March meeting. And hopefully we can, we can get through that we can grease the skids a bit for that meeting. And dispense with that fairly quickly, and then move headlong into solar and have that be the rest of the session, but that's agreeable.
That agreeable to everybody. So we'll be discussing the subdivision for those who will be watching or were in attendance. We will be discussing subdivision ordinance. And we can also maybe go into solar on the 227, and then on 327, when Roger's back, we will look at the subdivisions and solar on that. Any other pieces of old business? Any new business? Would you like to put it out?
I would just like to say, the town county zoning ordinance is very package. The original zoning ordinance was adopted in 2008. it's the background of the chairman of the planning commission at that time, or something like, and I don't know. What do you- Said they could not find the original zoning ordinance in the courthouse. So I gave him what I had in my notes. From the zoning ordinance. Subsequent to that, I found the complete document in my files. Of the original zoning ordinance. So I have the original zoning ordinance. This should really say amended zoning ordinance. This document here.
Okay,
Yeah.
what was the date again? It was
Amber's gonna have to go back. It was in 2008.
2008.
I don't have the commissioner's copy where they signed it. 2007, they adopted the comprehensive plan, which comprehensive plan has been adopted. So I think in 2008, they adopted the zoning ordinance.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
There was a couple things I want to discuss, emails. I know there were several published requests for records. And, not everybody has their own government email, they're using their personal emails. Just because you use your personal email doesn't mean that you can't be requested for your emails pertaining to the work you do here on the board, so. I think the commissioners were looking at,
we had discussed and wanted to bring it to everyone here that doesn't already have a county email per se, government email. We'd like to work with Brad and get everyone on here a county email address so we can all correspond through the county email addresses. That way everything's in one spot. It's not diving into personal emails. Everything's being contacted or contracted through a government county type email address. So if something ever does awry, then that's an easy way, not an easy way to track it, but a less invasive way.
So one of the things we have to be cognizant of, whether it's personal email or governmental email. One, we don't do business behind closed doors. That's on email or not on email. We do business in an open meeting. So if there's, believe, it's 2 or 3 or 4, I can't remember the exact number. It's a percentage number of how many of us in an email chain. So be cognizant of your open meeting laws and, you know, the discussion of it, sending out, this is what the agenda is. That's a different thing from what I understand from the attorney. But planning on that has to be done because we owe it to the public. You know, the planning commission does what I'll be covering here in just a little bit. We have to fulfill our duties as members of the APC.
there is a retention law for governmental emails. I may be wrong, is that 3 years? Because what I've been told is 3 years.
So we'll be needing to get your names, and then we'll be getting with Brad to be able to then give you Fountain County email so that we can be able to do that. So then it's quickly found on that. So we'll do that. I think it's, what do they do? Like your first initial and last name and something, you know, Fountain dot, whatever it is. So we'll be having that. And then all business needs to be conducted through that. It's just the proper way of doing it. So we want to do it the proper way. Anything else, Sam?
Yeah, I want to discuss permit approvals. I know this has been a hot topic for a few years on who has the final authority on approving permits that come to the county. Several years ago, it was agreed in the planning commission, I don't know how many of you were actually on the board at that time, but it was agreed that they did not want one person to have sole authority to approve permits, mainly the solar permit. And there was an agreement amongst the boards in the minutes. Somewhere along the line, the ordinance was wrote where it gave the authority to the zoning administrator to be able to be the sole authority on approving permits. It was voted on 4-1. It didn't meet the rules of quorum. And it was passed by the sitting commissioner to the commissioners under recommendation, and they passed it. And then they gave sole authority to the zoning administrator. Fast forward to the technical review meeting. I know this board has asked repeatedly on solar permits, where we were, feedback, information. And then we did the technical review for Dolphin. Jim, I know you was there. Kyle Crowder, the current chair, was there, and myself, and Roger. It was a good meeting. It was a good technical review. I felt really good when we left. The things were discussed, that a lot of the public had questions. And I asked if I could give that feedback to the board, and I was told no. I was told no by the legal counsel. The planning commission has no authority on anything to do with those permits. Kyle Crowder brought it up anyway. I don't believe that's right. If the chair agrees to make a motion to remove all verbiage in the current ordinance that gives the zoning administrator the authority to approve all permits and give the authority back to the advisory planning commission. I'll second the motion. I'll make a motion.
I'm saying.
When are we allowed to discuss?
Now we have a second. So,
Striking zoning administrator being the sole authority on approving permits, solar permits. And giving it back to the planning commission where it was supposed to be.
Are you saying just solar permits, not other
I
permits?
think all permits.
One second, I apologize. Motion was by Andrew. And Mark seconded.
Yeah,
We can have discussion.
yeah, you can't just have. My thought on that, generally speaking, because we can't just have one set of keys to the kingdom, right? There's a reason there's 2 launch keys, right? Yeah, I think there needs to be a check.
Could you speak up so we can all hear?
I would say that there's, when it comes to, in my opinion, I don't speak for everyone on the board, but. There's a reason you have 2 launch keys, right? You can't have a sole, in my opinion. I think it's more protective to have 2 individuals making a decision to approve a permit or not, rather than 1. I think it's just generally a good practice, so. And I wasn't at those meetings or in those conversations. I'm just speaking in generalities that I think it's probably a really good idea. To have 2 people making those decisions and returning it back to the way that it sounds like it should have been anyway. It kind of defaulted back into one person having that authority where it likely should not have been that way. Kind of fell backwards into that, feels like, so let's write it. That might be.
I see what you're saying, but on the opposite side, I'm afraid that if we put it back to where this council needs to approve everything that comes through, like, for example, my husband submitted a permit for building a barn.
Building permit should be checked beforehand, before they're brought, and just stamp that they meet all the requirements.
Right, so I'm asking, I just want to make sure that we're thinking about unintended consequences. Are you thinking of, somebody comes in because they want to build a new house. They check all the boxes, but they can't get their approval until the next APC
Other
meeting.
counties do it, they have deadlines, be no different than the variance permits that we do.
What kind of enforcement will there be on that? I know we've struggled.
Enforcement on that.
Do what?
Explain the enforcement.
Well, I filed my permit, but I'm waiting for, because, it's the holidays or, and a meeting gets canceled because we don't have a quorum. Then folks are waiting for months on end for something that checks all the other boxes.
Previously, when I was handling the building permits, when I'd send it to Roger, I'd send it to the chair and Vice and Roger. doesn't meet quorum, but they can see that all the checks are met, and they can say yes. And it's usually a pretty quick process, at least it was.
It's
Okay.
still, I think. I don't like being under the gun for being the sole permit approval.
Right.
You know, I would be more than happy to say the more than area. I think it would be good if we have a task committee. You know, like pick maybe 2 or 3 of you, because that way we can move fast, because
Mhm.
people that want to build a house, they probably don't want to wait another month, especially when there's nothing wrong with their permit. Like 90%, 99% of the permit applications we get, they meet the setbacks, they're out of the flood zone, they have their septic permit. Like that person, why should they wait?
Right, it's just checking the boxes, so,
And if you guys want to take it out of one person's hand and make it a committee, then maybe we can have a working committee, let's say the 3 of us, or the 4 of us. Amber already checks it, Tina checks it, so there are 2 people already checking them. I'm the 3rd, and maybe 2 of you guys, and if all 5 say good, we give them a permit and we just move.
What permits are you talking about, Roger?
This is just for the building permits, the example for the building.
But
permit.
what,
Amber's motion was for every permit, though.
well,
The remove zoning administrator is the full sole authority to stamp and
so
approve.
are you trying to get us to change the zone, the current zoning tonight?
I have a motion for us to strike
Okay.
that, yes.
Can we do that
No,
without?
this isn't legal at all. You have to notice everything.
Right.
Anytime, any change here,
Well, the vote would be if the board agrees, then we would have to advertise and hold a public.
we would
hearing.
have to get ordinances drafted. We
Yeah.
would have to start noticing it. We shouldn't vote to do something that we don't even have. My God, we did the moratorium and it was a 2-line change and it took us months to get that done. You remember that? We are talking about a fundamental change to everything that the county works on when we don't even require, we're not legally required to have building permits. It's finally even on the county website. We should not not unilaterally, obviously, but we should not all of a sudden change this to create a committee to do permits when you're not even legally required to get a permit right now. Something's not right on this.
So your motion is that we start the process to be able to do this.
Now, we can not vote on it and spin our wheels for months. But if we vote on it and everybody agrees unanimously, then we need to move forward and do the change.
So then we would then have to have a meeting and do the public notice. And we were drafting new ordinances and follow the notice policy on that. But this would be, well, I understand that we would be moving forward. We're stating this is what we're moving towards. Is that correct? Was that what I'm understanding?
But
Right, so then-
just because I've been doing these permits, maybe you guys want to talk about making different baskets of permits. There are some permits that are more important than others. Like maybe if it's a commercial permit, it needs a little bit more scrutiny, but the residential permits. Man, we're gonna bog down people that are ready to dig holes, you know?
Most permits are ministerial, meaning there is no authority. If it meets the ordinance, it has to be passed. Right now, we don't even require permits.
Okay, strike building
Sure.
permits from it. Solar permit authority should go to the planning commission and not one person. That doesn't give the feedback to the planning commission.
So let me talk to that, please, let's wait, Amber, read the solar ordinance revisions, I think it kind of does that.
We have far
Okay.
more protections than that as
Yeah.
it stands.
Yeah, it
Far
goes
more.
way beyond that. Let's wait on that, read the ordinance, because you haven't seen it yet, and I think you're gonna see that, it kind of does that. And then if you have more concerns after that, then we can address them on how we want to proceed with that. But I think now, it's a specialized area that requires review by the BZA and review by, so there's a lot more checks and balances than one person saying, you meet the ordinance. Because right now, all I can do is, do you meet the ordinance or do you not meet the ordinance? If you meet the ordinance, my hands are tied. If you don't meet the ordinance, I can raise my hand and tell you that I'm meeting the ordinance.
Right, and we've had that discussion before,
Right.
that if you're not. If a permit does not get approved, that has checked all the boxes, then we open up ourselves up to legal
Are you
action.
talking about solar or are you talking about everything? Then? What are you talking about?
I think we're addressing more of the solar issue.
Okay,
At this point.
so let me get clear. Building permits are not required right now in Fountain County. So there's no point in talking about whether a permit. No, I'm not, Amber. I'm sorry.
Residential,
Yes, and
Requires a building.
all of Fountain County currently is ag except for a handful of very tiny places.
commercial requires permits.
I'm not aware of any commercial zoned areas at this point. Not on the current map that I see.
There is Stoltzman's. Down on 32 and 41, it's commercial.
Well. We should not change our entire zoning all of a sudden and the entire permit process because we have a couple of small areas that currently require it. So.
I would be more comfortable taking, I don't think your idea is bad, but we're in the process of rewriting all of these ordinances anyway. So instead of having to advertise for a special meeting just for that, I would feel better spending our time going through these ordinances, really deep diving into them and taking that into consideration as we're making these edits.
I agree. But it's been 2 years and nothing's happened in the wheels of just, because we're getting too caught up and trying to do the whole instead of busting up and doing what we need to do. If it's too extra public to pass certain pieces of the ordinance, I think we owe it to the community to do that. And not take 2-3 years to create a massive ordinance where we have missed the big picture of important topics that's going on in the community. And that is the role of this board. To listen to the citizens and the public, and we are the go-between between the public and the commissioners. And when we table things and allow it to go on for years, it's unacceptable.
I see what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I feel like we're moving in the right direction. I don't feel like we're sitting on things anymore. I know it seems like it, but every time we have turnover on this board, we could have talked about subdivision tonight, but there's, a third of the board that has never seen it before. So that's.
We didn't take hold of who's read or who's not said it.
Well, I'm just saying that there's a third of this board that is new. So that, and took copies of it from Roger with the flash drive. So that I'm saying I feel like we're moving in the right direction and we're not just sitting on things.
But when you have public continually turn out, because you're supposed to be talking about one thing, and we push it off to the next, it's probably pretty tiring.
So for instance, in the zoning, sorry,
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
not trying to cut you off. So in the zoning ordinance, which I have read. Specifically to your comment, so in 3.02, the petitioner shall meet with the zoning administrator to ensure the subdivision application for any exempt administrative, minor, or major subdivision is prepared in accordance with the ordinance requirements. The zoning administrator can approve or deny administrative and exempt subdivisions, and an APC meeting is not required for administrative or exempt subdivision approvals unless the petitioner does not agree with the findings of the zoning administrator. So if we have a meeting on this and we look at these, and as has been mentioned of creating, do we look at it as, the most seasoned member of the, however we want to break out for the committee, if you will, on that. So then we have things that can go through. Maybe that's a discussion that we need to have. And then we look at all the other ones, because as I've looked through, I would hate to say I've looked at all of them because there's many of them, but I've looked through a vast portion of the ordinances of Fountain County. And a lot is bottlenecked at the zoning administrator. I mean, there's absolute power of it almost seems like the Roman Emperor at the Colosseum, and so having that, and even to your statement is that it doesn't have that, but then being able to have for the citizens that check the box and all they're doing is putting up or doing, a small thing, then we have that. But then we have to write it down instead of, that it's actually embodied in print. And we have one of those, they email it out to us and, you three that are on it or whatever, random three or whatever it is, give the thumbs up in an email form, boom, it goes through. That might be worth a discussion. But I believe for us to have more of a discussion, if I understand correctly, because what we're looking at in this is we're going to be looking at all of them. And your point, hearing your point of that is we're supposed to be, it is public hearings that we're supposed to hold to receive comments from the public concerning changes to the zoning ordinances. I have since what day did you guys meet? Was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday, and my name was put there. I have received comments from several, and this is one of the concerns of the community that I have personally received several comments from it. Anyone else?
I think when we start reviewing these new ordinances, a lot of that is gonna flush itself out. Because even for instance, for administrative subdivisions, it's very vague there what an administrative subdivision is. Whereas here it breaks it down, it says that it's any split of two or less, so parent parcel plus two, that's administrative. Anything that has to go to a cemetery plot, that's administrative, so that does not, at least the way it's presented here, does not require an APC meeting. Now, somebody comes in and says, I want this, a cemetery plot for diseased pets. Well, that comes to the APC because that's different than what a normal standard administrative split is, administrative split for farmers of 5 tracts or less. If a farmer has 4 kids and wants to split them and give them each one, that would be an administrative, as long as the intent is to use it for farmland, not for subdivision creation. So there's a lot more details in here, and I hope that you guys take the time to look through them. So once we deep dive, a lot of those questions may just fall off. Because we look more at what are we trying to do here? When it's vague and it says it doesn't follow the ordinance, well, what does the ordinance say? Well, nobody knows what the ordinance says. We're trying to spell it out. So hopefully these new ordinances will help guide us to do want to be stricter, do want to be more lenient, do want to put more in, take more out, whatever it is for them.
Any other discussion? We have a motion, a second to be able to move forward on that. All in favor? Three. Opposed?
Sustain my vote because. Need to.
Sorry, what'd you say, KW?
I'm gonna sustain my vote. I'd like to have a little more clarification on
Okay.
what's coming, what's going on, and get a little bit more up to speed on everything before
Yeah.
I make a decision.
Any other pieces of new business?
I do want to say, Amber, I think it's a great idea. I just want to keep moving forward with some of what we're doing instead of
I agree.
doing this.
And to John's comment. I'm the front line of everything that this board does. And I have had citizen after citizen after citizen in my ear. And at some point, we got to start moving on things of importance in this community.
Right, and I think we're moving in that direction, and I don't think we're disregarding any of the things that folks have.
That I
Right.
am totally fine, we can agree to disagree on anything, and I have no bad feelings.
Yep, I'm just saying, I want citizens to know that we're not disregarding that kind of thing. I want to look forward in getting some of this stuff
I
passed.
wanted to make a good point, this is something
Yeah.
that's important, needs to be looked at.
Yep.
That's my whole intent.
Absolutely, so thank you for bringing it up.
So are we wanting to try and double up some of these meetings to get the ball moving faster here in the first half of this year, or? I mean, I'm willing to do.
I think
some
we
if
need
everybody
to
wants
start
to. I
on
would
one
just assume
thing
the
and
other
finish
way.
it. I think
Yes,
bouncing
I
around,
agree.
bouncing around from one thing to the next. It doesn't work. We need to start on one thing and finish it.
Are you hoping like we can go through the subdivision and then pass the subdivision in separate?
I think
Public
that's-
meetings?
I think that's what we should. Well. At least agree that we're done with it.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Agree.
Okay,
Agree that we're
Yeah.
done with it.
okay,
Because
We're not
if you
gonna
pass,
revisit
if
it.
you pass the subdivision, you don't have a drainage ordinance, the subdivision.
Right, and
ordinance
that's-
Go to the drainage. ordinance.
right, and that's what I was worried
And
about,
that's
if
stuff
we're,
we do.
if we're not done with some that refer to others, yeah, right.
We do a little work on one thing. And then we move to the next, and there's no finalization on what we were doing. And I know there was another part of the ordinance that. The board voted on to recommend. And we can do that in pieces, but let's. Target in on one thing and finish it.
Mhm.
And not revisit it 5 times.
Yeah. That's why I'm glad we have kind of a plan of when we're going to talk about what, and I know that this meeting may be a little bit different than what folks were expecting.
We should
but
set goals.
Yes, yes.
Any other pieces of new business?
You know, there's a review on 227, we're gonna review the subdivision ordinance. Why?
On 227, we will be deep diving ourselves into the subdivision. Roger will not be in attendance. So then we will collate questions for Roger.
Okay.
Who will be present on 327. And our plan is that we're going to deep dive with Roger into subdivisions and solar ordinance
On
on
327.
327.
Done. So I really finish up subdivision. On 327.
Well, I think I agree. I think the intent was we have a working session on 227 to try and really kind of button up on what we want to change or not change or love, hate. And bring that to Roger on 327. To kind of facilitate that conversation, so we can have that be as an efficient of conversation as possible on subdivisions. And I think when we're satisfied with the outcome of that conversation, we'll move to solar. I agree, it's a lot to bite off in that meeting. Don't get me wrong.
May I was on 227, when you guys meet, if there are notes taken. Like if Amber takes really good notes, I can meet. The Monday after that, when I come back, I can meet with Amber, I can meet with the commissioner. Get a quick rundown of what you guys decided and take that and incorporate it into the March meeting. That way we have something. A little bit more meaningful to use in the March meeting.
Would it be possible to have, like, if Amber, since you're the secretary, sorry, if you have it on your computer, we can hook it up to the TV, so we're all looking at it, and then, you know, turn on the function of a Word document where you can add in comments or track changes. I think that would be really helpful for us as a group, with then going back to Roger saying, okay, this part, we had this comment, and it's more of a question instead, or and then another section, you know, we want to strike out this part. So
On the March meeting, if you want to do that, I can have one of my engineers or Aaron come with me. Because Amber doesn't need to be doing that, I think she needs to be debating with you guys, and then whoever can work on that, if that's okay with you guys.
I see solar as a fairly contentious issue. I don't see it finishing by June or the October. And so I just want to say that was a decision.
So I understand your position on that, the process to be able to. That was a question I had for Heath and was not able to ask him. The process, do we recommend to the commissioners for an extension of the moratorium, or is the process on that, because we won't be able to. I mean, time's ticking to your point on the time's ticking.
Yeah, the planning commission makes recommendations to the commissioners. Is that what you're asking?
So can we make a recommendation to the, as a body tonight, to extend the moratorium to the,
No, everything we have to do properly through the notices.
Okay, so we would have to know.
We gotta have a public hearing, we have to come up with the new. Um. Basically ordinance language to recommend.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Can the commissioners decide on their own to do the extension of the moratorium?
That was another question I had for Ethan as well. I don't know what that.
I think, you know, presenting myself as an attorney, but I think it's that originally was probably. I think it needs to be looked at.
Was the first moratorium generated from this body?
Yes.
Yes.
Presented to the commissioners?
Yes,
Was it advertised though?
yes,
It was just a public meeting.
no, it was all done properly,
You do all that.
yeah, we had a special meeting, it was all done, Kent took care of it all.
So are you all in favor of extending the moratorium? For a year?
I think we would need to get, let's get with Ethan to be able to. Get a meeting where we bring that up and then we will. Look over the moratorium. Is that attorney? So we're not whipping a vote.
So the proper process would be to schedule a meeting on it before making a motion then. And so what Campbell is.
Yes.
Regarding,
So we would need to schedule a meeting for the.
all right.
Maybe you just misunderstood what I said, say. What did you think I said again?
So we need to get with Ethan to be able to get notice made. For a meeting for us to be able to
The
moratorium.
The APC before it. We can have all the meetings that we want, talk about whatever we want, work on things, which is what I've been doing. Before anything for a vote can be had on anything that we are going to propose, it has to be a public hearing, which is public noticing, etc., published, however it's supposed to be, and also, I don't know the details.
And I apologize because I
Yeah.
did it out of order and I understand that.
And so then we can have the public hearing. Which is when the public has the right to speak. And then we do that, and at which point we vote, we don't vote, we propose changes, etc. And then once it's voted on, it can go up to the commissioners, and then. I don't know if they have, I haven't looked at that. I don't know if they have notice requirements on the commissioner's side or not. Ken's always, I have no idea.
That's why.
On their side, I don't know anything with what they have to do.
And, you know, I apologize for the way I did that, but in order to get the board to agree to have a meeting, how's that decided? How have we decided?
We just,
If there wasn't a
we
vote.
can talk about whatever we want, as far as I'm concerned.
So
I mean,
did you decide this meeting and for next meeting to have a discussion in regards to the extension of the moratorium? That gives you 10-day notification that your next meeting is not till February 22nd.
If I will be notifying Ethan, what I will be doing, we'd be going to, and we'll check with him, to find out what we need to do. To make the meeting so that we can discuss in a public hearing. To recommend the changes if I'm. If I'm
We
understanding
can-
correctly, to be able
we-
to do a solar moratorium.
But you gotta have it. The
We
verbiage.
can talk about whatever we want, but before we can have a vote on specific language to send to the commissioners, we have to go through the notice process.
I want to notify the public that we're discussing that so that the public is here. Because when we open up for public,
Gotta have the ordinance done. That's what you're
That
saying.
that is a completely different topic, what you're talking about. We have to be ready to vote on language. We don't even have to approve it at that point. I mean, it's fundamentally the same process we went through on the area plan. The comprehensive plan, sorry. But Ethan will explain all that.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows it all.
So I'll be contacting Ethan to be able to execute a recommendation from us and figure out the pieces that we don't know. We have to get a public hearing so that we can have in whatever order that needs to happen. So then we can recommend to the commission, sorry, too many Cs here, to the commissioners for a solar moratorium to be extended.
I guess I'm super confused. I think everybody else is happy with secretary. Because you guys, the way we do it, which may be different than the APC, but when we want to do anything that has to have a public hearing, we ask our auditor to let her know what date we want to have it on, 10 days out, 12 days out, whatever. So that way she can get it advertised in the newspaper. If there's going to be a public hearing in regards to additional appropriation or anything of the like. And then in 10 days or 14 days, whenever we have that meeting, we make the vote, we bring it to the table, we cast our vote, and it's done. So I'm confused as to why we're going to Ethan, because you're the chair and you can actually say, we want to have a discussion about this, we're going to need a public hearing 10 days from whenever she can get it in the newspaper, which usually is once a week. So the clock's are ticking on that. And that's how we do it. And that's how our attorney has advised us in the past.
And that's better.
I don't. Would you agree with that, Dudley, or?
Absolutely. So we can make a motion tonight.
You can make a motion tonight that you would like to have a public hearing whenever Amber can get it in the paper, but it just has to have 10 days notification. Yeah, and it's just an extension. You're not really changing any verbiage other than the date. Because we had to do the same thing when we did our extension on the ERA and the abatement.
That I'm just fuzzy on what the
Yeah.
meeting rules are. That's why I
Yeah.
just was gonna
Yeah.
talk to you to be able to do that.
Yeah, if you feel more comfortable doing that, by all means, it's your call to make.
The public meeting to make it a public meeting for the 27th, is that the day we would want to discuss the solar moratorium?
February 27th.
February 27th.
Yes.
Public meeting.
Yeah, it'd be a public meeting for the solar moratorium to be able to adopt the language. So it'll be a pre-planned meeting and it will be a public meeting, so it will be notified to the public and we have a month's notification on that.
Public hearing.
Public hearing, I apologize, my terminology may be.
Because you can have both.
So the public hearing,
Did you say you can't? Yes. You can have it at the same time.
Okay, I don't present myself to the attorney.
Yeah.
Obviously, you.
I'm just-
Statements.
I'm just here trying to.
I will go with the attorney's advice.
do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion. To extend the moratorium or
To-
Public hearing.
To call for a public hearing
public hearing.
for the extension of the, for the extension of the moratorium. Amber makes the motion, Mark seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? So February 27th, we'll be discussing that, having a public hearing. I believe I got it correct, and we'll get that, publicized out.
Contact the paper tomorrow to advertise that. Well, I'll get with Ethan to make sure.
It'd have to be in the paper no later than 17
Yeah.
for the 10-day notice.
And then, I don't know, there'll be enough time.
Yeah.
Any other pieces of new business? Question? Anyone else have any other new business they'd like to bring up? So the piece that I'd like to bring up, it's in your red folders. I will make this, we're gonna make this available, like we're discussing, so it's a, from Val Slack about, what is, she works, I believe, from, with the Purdue University an ag and natural resources educator going on, what does the planning commission do? It's highlighted in our packets. And so I just want to go over some things that we as planning commission members should be doing. It's highlighted there in the second paragraph. It's placed in the middle of the flow of information throughout the community. That's what our position, planning commission's position in the structure of local government greatly enhances its ability to carry out the advisory function. And we are in the middle of the flow of information throughout the community. So in a situation that may arise, there might be multiplicity of different opinions that would come. There'd be somebody that's for it, there'd be somebody that's against it, and then we as the board have to discuss what our thoughts are. Encouraging public, I hate to say the word public comment because that may be tied to a public hearing. That is when the public in a public meeting can and has the right to speaking, but as the chair or whatever the position that I hold, I believe it's called chair, is I want to hear from the public. So I will be opening up here in just a moment for the public to talk on that and to give to us information as a board. As a commission, excuse me. The planning commission is a legally mandated group who draft a comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance, and we make recommendations to elected officials on proposed changes. Planning commissions have the authority to approve or deny subdivisions of land based on the subdivision control ordinance. We once established, this body becomes the unit of local government with the responsibility for comprehensive planning and zoning. The legislature carefully defined the responsibilities and duties of the planning commission. They are to create planning that is comprehensive, done on a continuing basis and free from partisan pressures. We have some important responsibilities. We're supposed to hold public hearings, as it says here, as necessary to receive comments from the public concerning changes to the plan, zoning ordinance, and other land use regulations. We have a public meeting, that's what we're in now. We're going to have a public meeting on 2/27. And instead of making it all confusing, where we're still going to follow the law, I still want to hear from the public. So I don't know how we're going to cut through all the nonsense and cut through it. We're going to hear from the public. I want my phone to ring. I want you to ring to other phones and email people, because if we're not getting information from the public, looking at the camera and those that are in attendance, then why the heck are we here? We're going to listen. I might not like what you have to say, and I'm still going to listen. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask probing questions. I hope each one of us all ask those questions on that. We communicate with that. Carry on a continuing program for citizen education and planning and good public relations in the community. Number 5, do special studies as requested by the local legislative body. The commissioners may come up with something because I believe they're the legislative body and it's the council that's the fiscal body. The legislative body is going to make give us other things that we may have to do. You can read the rest on that. We have a lot of work to do. We have the plan is something we have to continue to look at because we're constantly being inundated with new things from the state legislature, which comes down from the federal, which comes and, you know, the snowball goes downhill. We've got work to do. I don't know how long the meetings are going to last, but I'm looking forward to hearing from each and every single one of you. I'd love to pack the place out every single meeting. It shouldn't be because it's a contentious issue inside the county that the people are involved in their government. Trust me, I like pointing out public servants and pointing out how shamey they should have. But can I beg you as the public, we need you and your input. I said it in a public place, I've said it and I'll say it here. I sat in a school board meeting. They were voting their budget in, and there was exactly 0 people at the public hearing to comment on the budget of that school board meeting. Friends, fellow Fountain County members, we need to hear from you. You need to be at the meetings. Thank you for attending. Bring your friends next time. Bring a lot of friends. let's get the communication flowing on that. Let's see here, is there anything else I had? Nothing other on new business, any others last round or new business? Open it up for public and speak on that. I asked, let's be direct and to the point. I understand you might not all be public speakers, so if you talk and you ramble, that's fine. But let's keep it direct and to the point. We're not going to get into us calling people out and pointing at people. That's when I will call you down. This is you're addressing us according to decorum. You're supposed to address the chair. You don't go and call out a member of the board. You say, Mr. Chair. So let's keep it, we're friends. Let's, so I'm not gonna call you out just because you don't say Mr. Chair. But if you go a little swirly, there's ways that I can be able to shut her down. So we're just not gonna get swirly, but I want to hear from you. Yes, ma'am. State name.
Kelly Carlson.
Hey, Kelly.
I am the president of the Fountain County Council, and I just want to thank all of you for your service that you are doing here this evening. As a fellow public servant, sometimes it can be very difficult and frustrating, and sometimes it's rewarding. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for what you are doing. And I hope that we can work together in the future.
As I was reading over, I'll get right to you, Dusty. As I was reading over, I noticed that we have a direct line to the commissioners. We're like the direct line to communicate with commissioners. But then in some of the reading, as I was doing of IC 36 and other pieces of documents pertaining to the commission, we're supposed to look at several different pieces that I think that we need to start having communication more directly with you as the fiscal body. So I look forward to growing that relationship there. Dudley.
Dudley Pruitt, Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing public comment. I just want to let everyone know that in December, the Fountain County Council voted for a 2-year moratorium on not accepting any tax abatements or ERA applications for solar. And what I would like for this body to do is run that the same, your recommendation to the commissioners of 2 years to run the same as the council's moratorium, so that they do not accept any permit applications for that same 2-year period. Because we know how long it's taken for this board to be working on these ordinances, and 2 years goes pretty fast. And so it'd be nice if commissioners of council were on the same page and had a 2-year moratorium from December of 2024 to December of 2026.
Thanks, sir.
And I'll add to that, Mr. Chairman, it was on any new permitting, because those that are in play currently are not subject to that moratorium. So we extended, ours was supposed to end on June, May 4th, so we extended it to the December 26th, 31/26.
Yes, ma'am.
It's nice to see you here. Sarah Dunsing, is it possible for us to get to see these drafts before the meetings of the new ordinances? I don't know if that's public information. Was posted somewhere?
I don't know on that process. I will have to check on that.
Thank you.
Never can go on the website.
I was told by previous legal counsel that drafts were not subject to public review, but I don't know how our new legal will.
Planning commission regularly. Interview that here.
I think that'll have to be something with,
Plan was on there.
that wasn't until after it was ready to be a public hearing on it, the draft was finalized. So we'll have to do whatever our legal counsel recommends.
I've got that down as a question. I will research that. Absolutely.
Carol Owens, is, there a difference between an advisory planning commission and a regular planning commission? As far as power goes, or anything of that nature?
I know that our position is a advisory to the directly to the commissioners, such things as comprehensive plan and the ordinances. I don't know.
And then, yeah, basically three types of planning commissions, metropolitan area, which would be in Mountain County, it would be all unincorporated areas and incorporated areas. If we were an area plan commission, we're an advisory plan commission, we only represent the unincorporated areas of the county.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, back to Sarah's question, how do we have a public hearing on something if the public doesn't know what's in it?
Public hearing is that we have to post what we are going to be, the ordinance that we, correct me if I'm wrong on that, we have to post what that will be for the public hearing. But for the ordinances that we would be discussing in a work session, that's the question, can we release them? Can we put them out to what that we're discussing, like the subdivision controls type of thing? For like a work session, if I understood
Yes.
Sarah's question correctly. But for the public hearing, for instance, the 117, that has to be posted, what we are, and the actual, that's what it has to be posted.
Typically, after you guys have agreed on the contents of whatever ordinance, let's say it's a subdivision ordinance. We do work groups, the public is available, but we're doing work groups. We incorporate all those comments, and when you post it for a public hearing, then you post that ordinance that you guys agreed to, and it becomes available to the public. Because I'll tell you, for instance, and I'm not, you guys decide what you want to do, but let's say we release it today the way it is. And she has a question, and she has a question, she has a question, she has a question, and I have 60 questions and they're opposing each other. How do I deal with that? Whereas once you guys agree to it and it goes into a public forum, you are educated on it where you can address the questions, and you only look for me for technical advice, like, hey, what do you think technically? Other than that, we have agreed to it as part of the community, and this is how we're driving forward. If you release it now and it's in a work in progress, I'll have 60 opposing questions that I would have no idea how to answer.
And some of them might be moot points anyway,
Right.
if it's things that we during our work session decide to strike out or edit. So,
At some point, it will be released to the public for full viewing after you guys have agreed that this is exactly kind of where we want it to go.
Anderson. A question, I think Jim just said that this is an advisory board. On the agenda for the commissioners, it is called an area of transition.
I believe there was two, if I'm not mistaken, you have the minutes from that, from the.
It should read in your, when you bring it up on the agenda, it should read advisory
Planning Commission.
My second question, and Campbell might be able to answer this one. Being an advisory board, we are just, excuse me, I used to say on the word. Was to make recommendations to the commissioners. So could an advisory board also be able to say yay and nay on permit? Or should it be the commissioner to approve the permit?
No, the APC Advisory Plan Commission, last time I read the statute, we have the ability to recommend a comprehensive plan. We have an ability to recommend zoning ordinances, just zoning ordinances. Other ordinances don't come from us. And then we have the ability to, I know, approve subdivisions. But I do not know about other building permits and that sort of thing. But subdivisions come through here if that's what it states in a subdivision ordinance. But then there's also technical review. I mean, there's other things, but I can't say off the top of my head about anything else. And I only know that on subdivisions because I've spent a lot of time with Roger writing what he's handing out.
The Indiana zoning law states that there are three types of plan commissions, like you mentioned. But when it talks in general about plan commission, it says the plan commission is the primary body in the community responsible for creating, maintaining, and administering planning and zoning efforts in Indiana. And then there are the three types, and the three types are exactly what you said. You have an area plan commission, if Covington and Attica want to play with us as a county, that is an area plan commission, and an advisory if it's only unincorporated, and then it's municipal. Those are the general 30,000 foot level duties of a plan commission.
So then back to Jim, being that you were on the original. I do have the 2008.
Oh, okay, good.
You know, I think we've had discussions before about how, you know, it started out to be simple. And
When we're
not confusing.
addressing a major issue in the southern
Right.
county.
Right. So, you know, I don't know why we have to have all these ordinances. I understand solar, wind, and subdivisions. Let's make it simple, and then the rest, let the county do whatever they want without permits, just like there's here, so. Anything commercial coming into this county, I totally understand. But a resident that lives in this county should be able to bring in a shed, a mini barn, whatever, and put on your property without having to come in and give it to them and pay for it.
Can I get a copy of that? 2007 or 2008?
2008. It's recorded and everything.
A question on this public hearing we're going to be having on the 27th. Will that just be people from the public having thoughts to be put in that subdivision? Or are we going to have a subdivision outline that we can add or talk about?
The public hearing is on the solar moratorium.
Oh,
So,
not already.
But the legalese gets very confusing. The public hearing that we have to have, so we have to give public notice, is on the solar moratorium. We'll be working on having a work session amongst ourselves on the subdivision ordinance on the 27th as well, if we can get that.
Amber was so right about how long it takes you folks to write ordinance. Because when I started coming to these meetings back in March of last year, I think the first, they talked about subdivisions at that time.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
How will you address if there is a conflict of interest in the ordinances that you may review or rewrite or make additions to? If someone has a conflict of interest, will they be participating in the rewriting or formation of any ordinances?
So if I understand your question, if there is a conflict of interest of a member of the APC,
Correct.
and they are, so the ordinance is a widget making ordinance, to use generalities. And they make those widgets or have a conflict of interest of that, can they have any, what was your input, or was there two things, one thing?
Just one thing, input, and the rewriting or formation or vote.
I do not have a full understanding of what conflict of interest we
Okay,
require. So I would think that,
in my reference, I am currently under a solar contract and I cannot vote on that company's permits or funding or anything in regards to that particular company. So if there's anybody on the board that would have conflict of interest with any type of anything in reference to an ordinance, how will that be addressed?
I don't know what conflict of interest what conflict of interest rules are, so I would follow them. I'm not trying to give beat around the bush answer. Can they give input, as in, can they talk at the meeting? I don't know, can they talk? I know they wouldn't be able to vote. If I understand conflict of interest, on that, but I will get that, so that we follow that, and that might be something that we also need to file for conflict of interest forms, as well. Yes, sir.
There are two questions. First one, still not fully clear on exactly where the public comment influences ordinances, specifically the solar ordinance is going to be changed. So I understand what I'm hearing. It's not made public until this commission agrees on the updates to the ordinance. Then there's a public hearing, then public comment can occur. As a result of that public comment, does it then possibly go back to the commission for revisions, or does it go to the commissioners and influence how they vote?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, so then the public would have, what I'm trying to foster is that even in work sessions, there would be public comment in it, so that the public is helping shape that. We are the middle. How I understand what our role is, we are the middle. But in that, in order to look at that, while we're having a meeting, we need to also be able to, as a commission, be able to have the meeting, and not being accusatory, but that there's not outbursts and on that. But you know, as in grade school, we raise our hands and we have that open discussion. Then we come back together, then we have the public hearing. If I'm not mistaken, we can then do changes after the public hearing as well on that. And then the final recommendation is then given to the commissioners on the ordinance.
Okay, so the
That answer your
public, yeah, so I want to understand where the public comment influence lies. So it's still with the commission working back and forth, possibly based on public comment and look at the future.
Yes.
My second question is, for Dolphin Solar and Roger, I don't remember when they submitted their application. I think it was September 2023, October 2023. Time around, I think it was around that time frame. They obviously didn't have their ducks in a row when they did that, because they still have not been able to permit, correct?
They were issued a conditional permit based on all the technical requirements that they have to meet. Because that's when we did the first permit, that's exactly what we did. We issued a conditional permit. And then that company was able to meet all the engineering requirements and environmental requirements and what have you. And then they were able to start construction. The same thing, we treated them exactly the same, so we don't end up in a lawsuit. So they have a conditional CSES permit, but they don't have a construction permit. They cannot start construction until all the engineering requirements are met. They had, I don't remember honestly, I think I had like 30 or 40 comments that I sent them that didn't address because of the issue of the permit.
So my question is, should there be a time frame to where a company can't come in and apply and have this conditional permit for an open-ended amount of time? Because what it does is it puts a lot of people in the community in this holding pattern. We've been in a holding pattern for 1 year and 4 months now. They still don't have an official permit. We have no idea what's going to happen, yet we're still trying to move on with our lives and figure out how we're going to run our business. And it seems like now everyone's beholden to them, having no idea what's going to happen because there's just this open-ended application. So I guess my question is, will the ordinance address the time issue of when these companies apply for something and how long they have to get everything in order for them to have those official permits? And if they don't meet that timeline, then they have to start with a new application.
Can I address that also?
Please.
Yeah, that is a great question, comment, and we need to look into that for the solar. Because I don't remember putting anything like that in the solar, but I did that for the subdivision ordinance. Because we don't want to approve subdivisions that go into perpetuity and then they can, 20 years from now, somebody can build it. So, and the subdivision ordinance, we put that the acceptance of the approval is based on a 4-year period to fully develop the subdivision. And within 2 years, you have to have 50% of all the infrastructure built. So something like that could be applied to solar, or something more restricted could be applied to solar to make sure that those permits are not open-ended into perpetuity. I don't think that's an invalid concern that could be addressed, when we look at the
Right.
reviews and say, that is, because we're putting it in the subdivisions, because we have subdivisions that are approved. There's one outside of Petersburg that was approved in 72. It's all subdivided into 4 acres. It doesn't meet today's requirements, but I can buy it tomorrow and separate houses. So we don't want to get caught in that trap. So we caught it in the subdivision. I'm not sure, but I caught it in the solar. So that's something that this committee, now that they've all heard you, will be on the radar to do something about it.
And actually, I do have one more question. So what Amber was mentioning around moving the authority or the approval from one person to multiple people, I understand ordinances are not retroactive, but then does that change, like specifically for Dolphin Solar? If they have to follow that approval process of more of a committee versus one person, or are they grandfathered into what it was? And I don't know if that's all like under ordinance, but she's proposing or not.
I'm gonna answer you the same way Jim does. I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is that they had applied before the moratorium. The grandfathered under the existing rules at the time they applied. I really am not a lawyer. I don't know if there's any way for us to get out of that without getting sued or get in a mess. My understanding is if they applied before the moratorium, they fall under those rules that existed before then. Anything after that will apply to either an additional moratorium or the new ordinance that will come into effect. And if I misspoke, please correct me. That was my understanding of what the.
Yeah, that came up in public comment months ago when we talked about this, and it was answered the same way, which is, and the example we gave was that we changed the speed limit on
Yes.
41 from 60 to 45. You can't write you a ticket for speeding last week, right?
Now we know how fast.
How fast
I'm
I'm
driving.
Evenly, so based off of what you said, which I don't, it's not the solar I'm talking about, but the new subdivision ordinances that will be coming in, is that going to affect or supersede what Petersburg does? So Petersburg has, which has been affected by what has been trying to go in the 2-mile radius. So these subdivision ordinances, is that gonna? No. Okay.
The jurisdiction of Petersburg remains with their 2-mile radius. I think Covington, Attica, and Petersburg are the only 3 that have the 2-mile radius. They have that jurisdiction over that. Anything outside of those jurisdictions would be under the county purview.
So the one that tried to get slipped in, that's now stopped. Whatever you guys decide with all of this, that's not going to allow that one to continue.
They would have to address it with Petersburg. I'm familiar with that one, and I'm working on that. Not to take it to Petersburg, address it with Petersburg, and come back out with the decision is in Petersburg, not here.
Okay, that's what.
And speaking to the 2-mile radius, we need to get some maps for everyone. So they know because it is a radius, it's a jigsaw puzzle for a lot of reasons.
So
Now, in your zoning
And in your-
maps, Covington and Attica both comply with the maps that were done for the fringe.
So it's.
The only one that's not is the Petersburg.
we found Petersburg.
Did you?
We found it in blueprints from Moses' days. And we digitized it, so we have a digital copy. So when we sit back down and we talk about zoning, we have that. Finally, that's what created that mess, is that there was no map. And when we asked Petersburg, I personally asked them for the map, and they said, we don't know where the map is. So we assumed that area was under county jurisdiction. And then when we pressed again, we brought it to the county. The county said, I think it's in Petersburg jurisdiction. We went back to Petersburg, we found the maps. They were rolled and they were blue maps, old maps.
I know Amber and I went to a Petersburg town meeting, and at one point they said they were going to turn it back to the county, and then I remember.
Well, they were pretty adamant that they wanted the jurisdiction,
And you have those.
but they didn't have a map.
We found the maps and they're digitized, so we have a digital copy of it.
All they gave us was an ordinance where it said that they took a 2 mile radius from town.
Didn't Covington just release to us South of 74th?
Yeah, and it's included in there, I believe, maybe I didn't get it in there yet, but yes, they released south of 74 back to the county jurisdiction.
There are maps for those jurisdictions, nothing about those maps is 2 mile.
Yeah.
Somebody came up with the idea of 2 mile, some of them are 2.25 mile this way, and some of them are like 1/4 mile, just right here, you know? It really depended on what highways ran through there and what made sense. Like Covington, they released the other side of 74 because he has no intentions of ever taking water or sewer to the other side of 74. So it makes no sense that he had jurisdiction there. You know, so, yeah, those maps, like Gettysburg, there's nothing that's 2 mile about it, it's all over the place.
It's just they're allowed that.
Yeah.
And they can define whatever they want.
Yes, ma'am.
When they divided that lot out there south of 74. How was that accomplished? Did it go through the BZA? Did it come here or did the commissioners do it on their own?
You're referring to Grub Lane?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was originally the jurisdiction of the city. And the plat was given to the city of Covington to approve. And what happened is they didn't want to have authority over it because of the septic and stuff, so they gave it back to the county.
Yeah, but they recently divided a lot.
So Carol, we don't have any subdivision ordinance. So although it looks like a subdivision and it smells like a subdivision and it works like a subdivision, it's called parcelization. Because we don't have an ordinance. So we have no rules for subdivision, so we can take that property and parcelize it into multiple parcels and just get it recorded. You know, when you have a subdivision ordinance, then it falls under the requirements of minimum acreage, frontage, setbacks, all that stuff. We don't have any of that, so he can parcelize it. In this, in the Grub Lane case, it was sent to the city of Covington. I believe Covington approved it. And then Covington turned it back to the county and said, we don't want to update it. And that's, you know, but even if Covington didn't do that, we would still have to abide by the parcelization because we have no subdivision ordinance. So I can go buy 600 acres tomorrow and subdivide it to 601 acre lots and have to do nothing because there's no ordinance to do that.
No question, Mr. Chairman. This might be toward Roger, who can answer. We currently have a situation on 28 east of 341, where 3 to 4 house trailers are on one lot. I believe there's almost 4 acres there, just shy of 4 acres. And it's supposed to be one domicile per acre. If you drive by there, it looks like a trailer park. Is that going to be addressed in any type of ordinance where you separate a mobile home / trailer versus a stick-built home? I don't have anything against house trailers and trailers because they're perfectly fine. I just don't want a situation for anyone else like what is there. Because they had to end up putting a whole new septic above ground and a mound situation because they didn't have enough space to put anything anywhere else.
I know it was maybe sure.
So the new ordinance hopefully will resolve some of those issues because it says what the minimum requirements are and how much you can subdivide with that. As far as the multiple abodes on a single parcel. I've been in Fountain County meetings where they looked at the health department and said, go look at it. So if it violates health department rules, there's your first action. You know, in today's world in Fountain County, there's really, our hands are tied because there's nothing that says you can't put 2, 3, or 4. But the health department, if they deem that there's an issue there, they can lock that down very quickly. So right now, that's where we can go if it's a problem. But in today's rules, again, we have no ordinances that says thou shalt not, so thou can.
But I know the person that originally bought the lot allowed for children to move onto the additional space, which she's trying to help her kids out, I get it. But, you know, I just had a question.
Anyone?
I know we've, you know, we've talked a lot about economic development, but economic development and zoning planning goes hand in hand. And I think we need to think about that 304, we have one. And the both of them together. And if we want to attract people from Tippecanoe County, we're going to become a university to expand that. And what about county, we gotta have a subdivision ordinance in Fountain County, if someone wants to put a subdivision there. If they want to build a $2 or $3 million home, they don't want a. And not this, I don't mean to say, they don't want a home next to them. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have economic development and planning and zoning going.
Yes. The subdivision ordinance only discusses what we're allowed and not allowed to do with the land as far as subdividing. But zoning is where this comes into play. You know, this is an R1, this is an R2, this is an R3. If you cannot have a trailer park in an R1 area. That's single family homes done.
The university like in the town there, regardless of the use of land, we have a new credit order and welcome them. So right now.
Thank you so much for coming out. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Any next motion?
We need a second to adjourn.
You need a second?
All right, I'll second.
And a second, all in favor?
You have the old agenda. I didn't sign that one, or the minutes, I'm sure.
No. Do we?
No, you did sign the payroll thing, correct? You signed the payroll thing that goes in the auditor. Yeah.
Agenda that we approved. from
Leave your
last
folder.
You and me and Jake
Yes.
did.
Did you have a copy of the minutes from the November meeting to sign? No, that the members present sign, or do you want Campbell to? Are we just signing?
There's
that?
actually no requirement.
Okay,
That's made up realistically.
okay. Good to know.
Jake, do you mind signing the minutes here?
So. Whatever you want to do.
Thank you. Amber, I'm gonna take my whole packet. So if you just bring me a binder, that would be awesome. Thanks. So then I have it and you don't feel like you have to be filling in stuff that I already took and I do want to take a look at some of this. Yeah. Right. I want to look at some of these things.
Don't take it for, you know.
Oh, no, and I hope you don't take it personally either, so.
Welcome to this debate. Because now that I think about what Susan said. But.
Here you go, John.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just looking out.
Yep, I get it. I get it.
To get this on this, we're gonna get those. Yeah, that's not. Send me.
No, I know.
Is it a big deal that Kent misspelled my name? I don't know how many minutes. Yeah, it's you put it right on the agenda. It's in the minutes that it's wrong, but I'm still the same person. Still the same study disposition. Okay. I didn't think so, but
Thank you. You know, hear different things like, oh,